Hey guys, I'm just doing a quick late night update. It's like 9:30 here. Um, and it doesn't say, it's not really that late, but I get up early because it's nice to be able to get good day started. Um, Studying and exercising in the morning. I find that's really been helpful for me. But anyways, I just thought I'd jump on real quick. Um, After spending most of my day yesterday diving into some of the command lines that Cisco has been using. It's been good and helpful. I don't. I'll probably have to memorize some of the command lines, but it seems like mostly if you're stuck or don't are uncertain, just do the help menu essentially and see what commands are available to you. The key part is not so much. I don't really see a point in memorizing everything, but I do see a point in understanding the core concepts and what you can create with um, Meraki systems. That's how I've always viewed things. Like I can always look up a command line. I can always look at that, but you can't learn. You have to really focus on what you can and best practices of some of these systems. Like what are the default settings, and can I change those default settings? Just make it a little bit harder for essentially the bad guys to not be able to make their jobs a little bit harder. How can I block out um, physical access or remote access, and prevent just security flaws from happening. Basically, just disable things you don't need. Um, Duke. Um, what, buddy? Come here. Why are you whining? Is the light spraining you? This is my doggo. He doesn't like it when I stay up late. Or maybe he might need to go to the bathroom. But anyways, let's see if he's okay with this. He doesn't like it when I have the light on when he's trying to sleep. He's an old puppy. But yeah, so I was on Reddit today and there we go. I came across somebody like ranting about some of the problems they've been having with Meraki systems, and I thought it was just really insightful, I guess. You have to I have to take it with a grain of salt, obviously, but it was surprising to see um, not just him, but like multiple other people essentially throwing rocks at Cisco and trying to discuss the problems with it. And I think there's problems with all security systems. I guess my biggest takeaway from all this is um, is that Cisco's really good at foundational and really good at what they specifically do, which is simplify networking to the point where it's mundane. Um, they've kind of taken an Apple approach, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Um, I wish they would. It makes me wish they would at least consider some other features. On the flip side, I got the impression that you should consider a third-party a firewall for your system, and then have Cisco as the um, networking part of it after that. But at the same time, I got the impression with there's one guy in here. Um, he basically just covered a lot of the complaints he's been having with Cisco and the features they don't implement or even don't even give options to. And it's just interesting to see that. And since there's more and more businesses that are having issues with ransomware, I'm really curious at what kind of network environment they had that allowed those things to go through, and having potential vulnerabilities that aren't getting patched over months. What is the company not telling us, or what is the company, what, you know, like they were talking about how Cisco is having bridge mode happening with some of their devices, just completely bricking them. I believe bridge mode basically just means that the person would have full access to everything. Um, sorry, my doggo. Full access to everything, which could then become a security vulnerability. And why isn't Cisco allowing us to know why those things are becoming a problem? But I feel like it's interesting because I'm obviously not on the business side of things, but I understand why a lot of businesses just want to set up Cisco because they believe it's the best of the best. But I get the impression that you really need to consider a firewall option. He specifically mentioned email scanning support, which I think is becoming a really important part of things. My other concern with stuff is, how is encryption traffic going? And I think that's my next thing I'm going to be looking into. And I understand there's a lot of bleeding edge stuff out there, but I'm surprised they haven't figured out ways to make everybody happy. Just allowing network engineers to shape stuff if they really want to. You wouldn't have to necessarily include it in the GUI, but at least put it in the command line in order to allow for scripts and stuff if they really feel like it's needed. I think that's one of the good things and bad things with Microsoft is, sorry, my dog's being weird, is that they give you a ton of options, but at the same time they give you too many options, and so therefore there's a ton of things that could potentially be vulnerabilities. We see that time and time again with some of the Windows stuff that's been happening. So I'm interested to see. I'm gonna start looking at some of the things that they recommended for like firewall stuff. But it seemed like no matter how you looked at it, you were gonna run into problems. Each company always has their own set of problems. It just depends on how many extras you're gonna have, and if you yourself can patch up those problems or change it to what your company's needs are. It's complicated. It becomes really complicated quickly. So I remember whenever I have to trouble Apple devices, for instance, sometimes an update will just kill your wireless for some reason on your device, and you're just like, why is it not working? And you're like, it's Apple. You just expect problems. I usually just assume it's a security protocol that Apple's no longer providing legacy support for security reasons, obviously, but at the same time, a lot of everyday people don't really care to have the security because it's causing them problems. So that's always been an interesting subject. Like, how do you tell a customer that they need to update the security on their router or even just the firmware? How do you go about that conversation? They rarely even know what a website is, let alone the password to the website and where to find the firmware button, and possibly have to update it themselves. I work in the retail industry, and a lot of people are like, can I get my own router? I'm like, you can. Just understand you're taking on that responsibility. I'm not saying like Xfinity, CenturyLink, and all those ISPs are any better, but at least they're doing updates consistently. And if you end up getting hacked, then you can blame Xfinity for allowing that. They are your ISP and they are providing your router, so they should protect you against that stuff. That being said, for how many things get mismanaged in the corporate environments, I do not have any doubts that Xfinity is trying, but they fail miserably a lot of times, especially on the customer side. And I wish people would take a more professional approach and actually make sure stuff's working. But one, it's expensive to do that because just hiring that many people to make sure stuff's working and working efficiently, and that's kind of why Windows, when they did their big layoff like 2 or 3 years ago, they basically laid off their entire development team for Windows and just combined their entire beta test team and just dumped all of it and had a very small team was streamlined. They all rely on telemetry data from users that are running the beta or the public releases. I remember Barney Cleave's Nerdgasm, I believe is his name. He was one of the people that got laid off, and he's like, this is why it's going to be broken, because one, the telemetry data is not going to be enough compared to what you can actually get from log records, and two, they used to have a huge amount of computers that were allowing for testing capabilities, and now the only thing they use is virtual machines, which makes all the hardware basically all the same, so they can't really test these things properly. I remember being when I was working at Apple, they would until things they actually figured out what the specific problem is. Sometimes we just had shotgun approaches until we could figure out the specifics. And that was with Apple, where Apple for the most part cares about making sure their stuff gets patched and is working. As odd as that sounds, like the backside of the hardware, to me it just sucks. For how much you're paying, I don't think Apple's making it worth it, but the software side and the iOS side, I think Apple's killing it. I think that's where 100% of their focus is. They put in their best engineers there. There's just too many little things that I'm constantly seeing through like Rossman and just irritations that you run into. You're like, I cannot fix this. Why is this not fixable? I had a MacBook the other day. The single USB-C MacBooks that are basically just glorified Chromebooks, in my opinion. The audio wouldn't work. We replaced the cabling. We replaced the audio, because the audio board is actually separate from the logic board. We replaced that as well. For some reason, it just refuses to work. The port connector looked pretty good underneath the microscope, but for some reason, it just didn't want to work. Granted, the MacBook did show some sign of water damage. Otherwise, besides the audio, though, it was running just fine. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but it's just, you can't fix it. That's ultimately what it is, unless I started going with the multimeter and started testing parts more, but I don't have that kind of setup for what I'm doing. It's just not lucrative for me. That is something I eventually want to start doing, is more repairs, just general repairs. I'd love to just buy a box of mystery iPhones or iPads and stuff, and computers, and just see if they work, and see what's wrong with them and figure out the solutions to them. I just don't have the money for it right now, and I'm hoping one day I'll get there. Because between the networking stuff, networking is a lot of fun, but so is also the hardware repair stuff. I love being able to just figure out the puzzle, essentially. I'm excited to get there. It's just planning stuff and getting things timing right makes it a little bit hard. But yeah, I've been grateful for the calm I've been able to have lately with my concentration, and be able to just pound through information and basically start sorting really what's relevant, what's irrelevant, what I don't understand. Okay, I need to stop my trainings and go figure out what they're talking about. I'm starting to understand that IT Pro TV is really great, because they go really from the basics, but they also miss some of the basics, which kind of drives me nuts. There's things I'm just like, I don't remember them talking about this. I go rewind it, I'm like, they still don't talk about it. I don't understand this. I have to go figure out how to understand this now. And it's kind of an irritation, but I guess that's just because I have a different viewpoint than most people, especially since I didn't take the networking course prior. So maybe I'll have to look through my networking book and see what's there. But there's just little things that I'm just like, I don't remember them talking about this. I need to go start over again. Nope, it's definitely not in training. Okay, let's go look at the textbook. That's one of the reasons why I bought the textbooks, is so I can go and say, hey, this is the manual. Let's go reread it, read it in someone else's verbiage. Sometimes different verbiage just clicks better with me, or they tend to cover different topics a little bit better, which is, I think, which is fantastic. That's kind of why, with learning experience, I've never understood like the college experience, because with college, you're going to get whatever professor feels like throwing at you. You know, they could be a terrible professor, they could teach things terribly, they could just not cover stuff that you're going to need in the real world. Whereas with this self-propelled system, I'm able to get it onto websites that are, you know, they're essentially picking the best of the best for their website that they can get. And you choose to. I'm pretty sure after IT Pro TV, I'm probably gonna go switch over to the I think it's CBT Cookie, I believe it was. There's a lot of other, you know, IT Pro websites like that I think I might just go rush through the content, see what different ideas they inspire for me. That's really what it is. I'm starting to notice that with the certifications, like after I've been looking through it, I'm like, I either know this stuff and I probably could pass this test, but I just don't want to spend the extra, you know, 30 or 40 hours it's going to require for me to actually memorize stuff, or the money for it, you know. That's been my biggest problem. I need to figure that part out. So, anyways, yeah, so I need to look into the features that Cisco's possibly lacking. It's kind of just like figure out all the variables that are missing, like figure out why those variables are important from a corporate environment, and then figure out what other options that potentially have actual grit to them. But I don't think that's going to be tough because most of that stuff's going to be directly from their websites, and they don't always are truthful about stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I do have this stuff, but our code's written terribly, so you're going to be open to other vulnerabilities that you're not going to be aware of. It's kind of why the open source community is kind of interesting, because those people are truly passionate and actually go through and actually create the software that's needed to make sure it's robust. Of course, obviously, you're going to have some degree of negligence, but I think that's why like Ubiquity products are doing so well, at least with small businesses, because they don't have licensing that's required, and you can upload your own software if you need to and lock things down depending on what needs are coming up, you know, coming to the surface. When I was reading through some of the Cisco stuff, it said that it was taking, you know, a couple weeks or months for things to get resolved. That's a concern from a security point, because you know, security problems happen every week, and you need to be able to react to it faster. I'm kind of surprised with their infinite amount of resources that they have. They're not able to circumvent a lot more of that. So I think that's the next thing I'm going to be looking into, but alongside of the stuff that Cisco might not be considering for their products, but also I'm kind of curious what ransomware is attacking what networking systems, because like they recently hit a couple hospitals, and they bet they had Cisco products. They must have, but someone must have accidentally got an email onto their systems and then flooded everything. So that'll be interesting. Anyways, that's what I'm going to be working on the next few days on top of the IT Pro stuff. I'm not sure when my next day off is. It's possibly Saturday. So you might see a post on Saturday, or Sunday and Monday possibly, depending on how things go. Work stuff's been interesting because I'm working at 2 different places right now. One of them we've had 2 employees recently quit. That's because the job itself is dissolving rapidly. Most employees aren't making enough, to be honest, so I might have to pick up some shifts, but we'll figure that out. Possibly Sunday or Mondays for sure. Saturday's a possibility as well, depending on how much studying I can get in during the week. But we'll see. I'm going to let this go, and you guys have a good night.